Android fiction is an interesting cornerstone of sci-fi. Ever since the inception of robots, they've been used to explore a variety of concepts, like the dangers of technology, the morality of creating sentient life, or making them an allegory for slaves or marginalized groups. There are a lot of different directions, but I always like the explorations of what it might be like to actually live with them. No grand story, no robot uprising, not even a love story between a man and machine. Just a simple day in the life. What are real issues and behaviors we could see if androids became commonplace? Produced by Studio Rika and directed by Yasuhiro Yoshiura, Time of Eve is an anime released between 2008 and 2009 as a 6-episode series, which was then turned into a movie in 2010. Personally, I prefer the movie adaptation. You can tell when the episodes are attached to each other, but I think it blends together well enough to feel pretty natural. It presents a world similar to our own, with androids being in every house, indistinguishable from humans except for a glowing ring above their heads. It also borrows the classic 3 laws of robotics from Isaac Asimov, and with this setup, it explores various questions about what living with androids could be like, and how people and androids can interact with each other. The story follows a high schooler named Rikuo, as he reads through his android's logs to discover a mysterious message. This leads him and his friend Misaki to the cafe Time of Eve, where androids don't display their identification ring, and there's no distinction between them and humans. Not exactly legal, but it gets them wondering about why the customers, human or robot, would choose to come here. They'll learn more about the regulars of the cafe, from an average teenage girl to an elderly man and child to a flirtatious couple, as well as what androids think about behind their complacent attitudes. I gotta say though, Time of Eve looks really good. The color palette uses a lot of softer tones and gives it a really mellow feel, kind of like a cafe. I also like the more grounded character designs. But then there's a really good blend of 2D and 3D animation. The entire cafe most of the movie takes place in is 3D modeled and looks great on its own, but then somehow the characters and 3D furniture go together really well. I think it has something to do with the color choices and lighting. This is a great example of how to use the two mediums together and have it look natural. Even the directing is neat, as Time of Eve is made to look like there's real camera movement. You'll get these panning or first person shots that look really cool. The music here is also excellent, with a lot of nice sounding tracks that are worth listening to. I guess I'd say it's a mix of synth and classical. I'll also mention that Time of Eve does have an English dub, and a good one at that, so if that's a deal breaker for you to watch it, rest easy. But back to the story and characters, without spoiling anything, Time of Eve is a pretty basic narrative. Over the course of the movie, it will explore Rikuo and how his views on treating androids changes through his interactions with the cafe. He'll also be contrasted by Misaki, as he stubbornly tries to convince him androids aren't treating as people. As for the other cafe goers, I don't want to give too much away, but they each bring out their own talking points about not only how humans should interact with androids, but how androids should interact with humans, and why they may want to. I can't really say it's original with a lot of the questions it poses. These are topics and themes that have been explored many times, but something about how Time of Eve presents itself just makes everything really work. It definitely spends a lot of time saying its message, but it doesn't feel as preachy as other similar stories can be. I like the more subtle and laid-back approach it takes. On the TVs throughout, there will be commercials warning against falling in love with robots, or advertising food grown by human hands as superior. There's clearly some form of segregation between humans and androids, but that isn't what Time of Eve is about. This isn't a story concerning android rights per se, but rather how we should be treating them, just as a part of our lives. In the first scene, for example, Rikuo begins to ask his android, Sammy, something using a normal sentence, but then corrects himself to give a stiff and direct command, as if talking to a computer. Later on, there's a scene where they're walking home in the rain under a shed umbrella, but then in embarrassment he moves away from Sammy and lets her get soaked. Now of course there's no physical harm done, but what does it mean to treat something that looks like a human and talks like a human poorly? Even if androids are artificially created, it still has sentience. It's still capable of learning, of forming preferences based on feedback, and in turn, of having feelings. This is what the characters have to come to terms with in the movie. If you go to a cafe, talk to an android in a way where you believe it's human, only to learn it isn't, can you still treat them as if they're an appliance? People get attached to non-sentient objects all the time, so what about an emotional connection formed between a human and an android? If you can grow attached to a teddy bear, what about one indistinguishable from a human? What if that appliance starts to act on its own in an attempt to make you happier or understand you better? Where a lot of fiction is about robots becoming sentient and gaining free will, Time of Eve is more about what do they do not they have sentience. They're still bound by the 3 laws, that they can lie and want just like regular people. These are the themes Time of Eve explores. Not a grand exploration of what it means to be sentient, but whether emotions or feelings are as valid coming from something artificial as they are coming from a human. While not revolutionary to the genre of robot fiction, Time of Eve provides a well-done, relaxed look into the philosophical questions that come with the genre. There isn't much in the way of plot or character development besides the main cast, but what is there feels complete, and it does have a very emotional ending. Even without that, it would still have great presentation, both in terms of its visuals and its soundtrack. This is a good movie I would recommend on its own, and it's definitely worth watching if you're a fan of animation or android stories. So if you want a subtle look into life with robots, or just a good movie to watch in general, go watch Time of Eve. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you liked it for some weird reason, consider leaving a like or comment. If you didn't like it, well, leave a comment anyways about what I did wrong. If you want to hear about more games I think are neat, or whatever random thing I end up making videos on, maybe also think about subscribing. Whatever you choose to do, I hope you have a nice day.